Hello 11HI4. Today, although I can't teach you, we're going to continue looking at what plots and revolts Elizabeth faced between 1569 and 1588. Your first job today is your do now. There are 5 statements here for you. All you need to do is write down whether they are true or false. This one needs to go at the back of your workbooks, and you need to do this on your own silently. Your teacher will pause the video to give you a chance to do this. When you're ready, hit play. Okay, let's check those answers. You're going to mark your own work in a different colour pen, and I need you to score yourself out of 5. Number 1 is true, it did happen in 1569. Number 2 is false, the Pope actually excommunicated Elizabeth after she put the rebellion down. Number 3 is true. Number 4 is false. She did imprison the Duke of Norfolk, but she later released him. And number 5 is true. Elizabeth had her in captivity. Tot up your score out of 5. How well did you do? Which bits do you need to go back and revise? However, we're going to move on. So we're still looking today at what plots and revolts Elizabeth faced in the period 1569 to 1588. And today we're going to look at the other Catholic plots against Elizabeth, and we're going to understand why those other Catholic plots failed. There are 2 main objectives here. You need to be able to describe the key features of the other plots, and you also need to be able to explain reasons why those plots failed. So we need to update our knowledge organisers. This needs to be very, very quick, just 30 seconds. You're going to find and tick these things off on your knowledge organiser, and your teacher will pause the video just for 30 seconds to let you do that. Okay, let's talk about the further Catholic plots against Elizabeth after the revolt of the Northern Earls. Pens down, eyes towards the front, get ready for 2 to 3 minutes of listening. Now, you should know that after Elizabeth crushed the revolt of the Northern Earls, Pope Pius V punished her by issuing his 1570 papal bull. This was important. The Pope excommunicated Elizabeth, and that mattered because, firstly, it incited or encouraged Catholics to murder Elizabeth. And secondly, as a result of that, this increased Elizabeth's suspicions of her Catholic subjects. Now remember, at this point, Mary was Elizabeth's prisoner. Elizabeth kept moving Mary's location from one prison to another to stop her being rescued. However, Elizabeth would not execute Mary, firstly because she was a monarch and believed to be chosen by God, and secondly because there wasn't any hard evidence of Mary being involved in any threats to Elizabeth. However, Mary's presence in England inspired continued plots against Elizabeth, and there were a number of these. The most important ones are the ones that we need to know about: the Ridolfi plot, the Throckmorton plot, and the Babington plot, and they are all named after one of the plotters involved. Now, these plots have some common features, as you're going to see. Firstly, they were all centred around Mary and the idea of replacing Elizabeth with Mary as Queen. Secondly, they all had quite poor or weak planning. Thirdly, they were uncovered by the government at an early stage. Fourthly, the plots all led to a strong government reaction. Elizabeth's government cracked down on and crushed the plots. And lastly, all the plots had some foreign support from Spain or France or the Pope, but this foreign support was unreliable, as we shall see. Now, the last thing I'm going to say to you here is that in order to keep her safe from such plots, Elizabeth relied on her spy master, Sir Francis Walsingham. It was his job to operate a spy network which would uncover plots before they had a chance to become a danger to Elizabeth's life. And so he's going to feature in the reading in the next part of the lesson. Okay, so you're going to need to have task 1.9 in front of you now. You have some information about each of the three plots, Ridolfi, Throckmorton and Babington. We're going to do them one by one, so please don't rush ahead. What you need to do here is to firstly read about the plot for yourself independently. After you've read, you're going to complete the little tick chart about the plot. You're going to tick each of the statements which are true for that plot. So, for example, the first statement you need to tick is, was there no hard proof of Mary's guilt in that plot? Now remember, you're only going to do the Ridolfi plot here, and then we'll check your answers. So your teacher will pause now and give you a chance to do this. Probably it's going to take you 2 to 3 minutes. Okay, time to check our answers to the Ridolfi plot. Can you make sure that your answers here are correct? Okay, time now for the Throckmorton plot. Again, your teacher will pause here and give you a chance to complete your tick chart before we check your answers. Again, 2 to 3 minutes. Off you go, guys. And here are the answers to the Throckmorton plot. You need to check your work now very carefully. Notice that in both of these first two plots, Ridolfi and Throckmorton, although they centred on Mary, there was no hard proof of Mary's guilt. And that made it impossible for Elizabeth to put Mary on trial. Okay, let's look at the last plot. Now this one is the Babington plot, and there is a slight typo in your workbooks here. So in a moment, the first thing you need to do is to correct the bits that I've highlighted in yellow in your workbook. There are 2 changes there that you need to make. And when you've done that, you need to complete the third and final row on your tick chart for the Babington plot. Again, your teacher will pause the video to allow you to do this, and then we'll check our answers. Okay, and here are the answers to the Babington plot. Notice it was in this plot that Walsingham finally got hard proof of Mary's guilt by intercepting her letters agreeing to the plot. This allowed Elizabeth to place Mary on trial and eventually to agree to Mary's execution when she was found guilty. Now, we're going to think in the next part of our lesson about why the plots failed. There are 4 big reasons for this: Walsingham's spy network, limited foreign support, lack of support in England, and government action. Your teacher will pause the video now, and you're going to read this together as a class. When you're done, hit play. Okay, now we're going to do some analysis. For each of the plots, we're going to find some examples of where these 4 factors played a role in making the plots to fail. So let's look at the Ridolfi plot and do that together as a model. Have your pens at the ready. The first thing I've noticed here is this bit. Walsingham's spy network played a big role in uncovering the Ridolfi plot and proving Norfolk's guilt. So I'm going to put factor 1 there alongside the text. But I've also noticed that this plot had limited foreign support as well. Philip II said he would support the plot, but he was not willing to invade until after Elizabeth was overthrown. So I'm going to put factor 2 alongside the text there. Now I've also noticed that this plot was uncovered before it had a chance to get much public support. So that's factor 3, a lack of support in England. And actually, if you look closely, you can also see how the government took really ruthless and effective action against this plot by executing Norfolk and expelling the Spanish ambassador. So I'm going to put factor 4 alongside there. Now, when you're doing this task for yourself, you might find that for the Throckmorton plot and the Babington plot, you might not get an example for every single factor. And this is your job. So in the next part of the lesson, you're going to look at the other 2 plots and you're going to analyse them just like we've done here. Your teacher will pause the video to give you time to do this. Okay, last task here. In the final part of the lesson, I want you to reach a judgment about why the plots failed. I want you to decide which was the most important reason. Was it Walsingham's spy network? Was it the lack of foreign support? Was it the lack of support in England? Or was it the action taken by Elizabeth's government? Whichever factor you choose, you're going to practice our technique again. In your paragraph, you're going to try and get a sense of debate between 2 sides. So you need to make your decision in the main point. Then you're going to put forward your argument and your evidence. Now, it's really important here to explain the factor and to give some specific examples from the Throckmorton, Ridolfi and Babington plots. Then you need to step into your opponent's shoes and put forward a counter-argument. Again, you need examples there to support you. And at the end of the paragraph, in your rebuttal, you give your winning points. This will probably take you about 15 minutes. If you finish this, then there are 2 jobs still to do. Firstly, complete task 1.6, which you started last lesson. And secondly, you can use the feedback that I gave you to make improvements to the exam technique question that you did in task 1.3 of your exam technique workbook. If you get done on that, you could work on to the next question. Well done today, 11HI4. I look forward to teaching you next week.